Okay, so this video is about how mediumship changes over time. Once you sit down to deliberately begin engaging in mediumship, you'll find that it evolves. People who've done this for decades tell me that that's true even for them. It changes. For example, when I cannot recommend strongly enough those online practice circles that I've talked about in another video. Great place to learn on each other rather than on the public. And especially in the first couple of years, the first year or two, things change a lot. And then it, for me anyway, it leveled out, and it's still changing, but not nearly as much as in those first 2 years. So for pretty much all of us, at first, it feels like you're making stuff up. And it's surprising when the person opposite you keeps saying yes. Feels good, but it takes a while to trust yourself, and that's easier said than done. Trusting that you really aren't making up things. The repeated experience of getting a whole new person and then having a different person in front of you saying, "Yeah, I understand that all for one person." Eventually, you trust yourself. So initially, what I would do is I'd sit down to connect. I'd get really quiet, and I'd wait for my thoughts and feelings to be unrelated to my immediate environment. I still do that, but now it takes a lot less time to connect when I do that. And right away in these practice circles, I was getting a lot of detailed information, like dates and names and what they did for a living and how they passed, but really not anything about their personality. And that happened to me. Some people get personality right off the bat. We all do it differently. Everyone has a different experience. So after a few weeks, I did start to get physical sensations in my body and on my body. Like the absence of a limb. That was really weird the first time that happened. The first time I connected with someone who had been intubated, I felt like something had been shoved down my throat. And that's how I learned when I get that feeling that they're referring to intubation. And then, if this makes sense, I hope this makes sense. If you can imagine turning on an overhead light in the room that you're in, if that light had a sense of weight, like if a piece of silk were laying over your body, that's what it feels like to me. There's this weight feeling. It kind of feels like information is falling on me, if that makes any sense. So, and that still happens to me. I still feel that way when I connect, but I didn't feel that way immediately. It took a few months before I got that feeling consistently. And then all of a sudden, I regressed. I wasn't doing very well at all. And that's not uncommon to happen to people, but I'd be sitting in these circles. I'd feel them, I'd feel that heavy feeling. And I'd sit there for 30, 40 minutes waiting for something, and I'd get nothing. And I'd say to them in my head, "I can feel you, but I'm not getting any information." So in my case, what that is a long story. I may do a separate video on it. What that was about was my desire to be accurate and my desire to be impressive was getting in my own way. Because I was waiting until I was absolutely sure of something before I would say it. And I was reluctant to speak if I wasn't 100% sure. So it's better if you just spit out and give what you get and learn by making mistakes, as you would do with anything new that you're doing. Over several months of doing readings, I realized that as I was remembering or imagining things kind of off to my left, people would say to me, "Oh, that's my mom," or "That's my mom's whoever." When I got it off to my right, they'd say, "That's my dad," or "My dad's mom," or whatever. And so for me, consistently now, when I get things off to my left, that's mom's side of the family, right is dad's side. And if I don't get a side, or if they're behind me, that's not a relative. That's an acquaintance. I didn't set that up with them. It's just something I noticed over time, and that's different for everybody. Not everybody gets a side. How people get the various things, it's a little different for all of us. So finally, after months, many months, I did start to get a sense of the person's personality. Like I knew if they were a really detailed list maker or if they were a jovial person or whatever. And other people get personality right off the bat. So again, we all do it differently. And then I've been doing this for like a year and a half, maybe not quite that long. And instead of just feeling that heavy feeling and having images run through my mind or sounds or whatever, I started to be aware of a presence with me in the room, someone physically in the room with me. And when I turned my attention to them, the connection was better. That still happens to me. And then now what actually happens to me is in my mind's eye, I actually see someone in the room with me, or I see someone walk into the room, or I notice that they're there. And then that had been going on for a few months, and this also still happens to me. There was one man who was repeatedly there, but he wasn't there to communicate. But I'd notice he'd point like to an area in the room, and I'd look, and there would be somebody. And when I felt several people, sometimes I feel several people in the room with me, and he'll point. And wherever he points is where I look, and there's someone there, and I connect with them. So he helps. And I feel like he and others have always been helping me. I don't know who he is, but I think they're always there. I wasn't aware of people helping like that for like a year and a half. It was a long time before I realized, oh, somebody's helping me. And now he's really obviously a help. I don't know who he is. That'll have to be another video. I don't know when I started to get ages of people, but I can tell you that for me, it's their age relative to my own age. And what that's like for me is when I feel like there's more of them than me, they're older. When I feel like there's way more of them, they're usually like 80, 90 years old. When there's just a little bit of them, that's a child, or not much of them, that's a young adult. I get it relative to my own age is how I get age. And it's only recently that I started playing with them. And I recommend being playful about this right from the get-go, because it's really helped me. I never got dates. Sometimes I'd get a date, but it was because of a date I already knew. Like I was connected with someone once, a man, and I suddenly felt like an arrow went stunk on a calendar on my mother's birthday. So I said, December 1st, I know is relevant, and it was the date of death. But that date already meant something to me. So I tried a bunch of different things that didn't work. No point in going into them. And then one day I was at my normal job and I was entering numbers into a spreadsheet, which I've done for so many years that I don't have to look at the number pad. I can just enter numbers without looking. And I realized, oh, I know numbers by touch. And so now when I do a reading, I put my hand on an imaginary keyboard. And for example, when they hit 7 over and over again, I know to say July or 7 of something. And that's pretty consistent. And it's usually almost 100% of the time, it's the anniversary of a birth or a passing when I get a number or a month like that. I did not get animals for a really long time, and I would see people in circles get animals all the time. Didn't know why that was, had nothing against it, had no idea how to reach for that. And then one day, a friend of mine and I were practicing on each other, a really nice woman, and I felt in the room with me this very powerful, vital, healthy presence, and I could not tell if it was a man or a woman, which is weird for me because almost immediately the first thing I get is a gender and on one side of me or the other. Couldn't tell. So, and my clock was running, my 7 to 10 minutes was running. So in my head, I finally said, I don't care what you are, what else can you show me? And it immediately resolved into a horse. And with a horse was a woman, and that woman was the sister, the deceased sister of the person I was talking to. So with one exception, every time I've gotten an animal, a dog, a cat, a horse, a cow, a parrot, they've been with a person, but I get the animal first, and then and then the reading is all about the person that I connect with. The one exception to that was a dog that I was sitting for someone, and I was reading for someone, and I suddenly felt this dog jump into my lap, and I could feel its tail going, and I said, "Oh, wow, I have like a dog. This is unusual for me." And it was amazing how much information specific information the dog was able to convey. Animals can do that. It was really cool. So it's a good way to end this video by saying your unconscious biases will get in your own way. And so, for example, I didn't get animals for the longest time because I was expecting a man or a woman. I was expecting a person, or at least I was expecting male or female, human, a child, an adult. But I just unconsciously expected a person to be there, which is why I wasn't getting animals. So you got to be open to whatever may come, however it may come. Just try to be open to anything. The next video I think might be a little bit controversial because I'm going to talk about things that we don't all agree about. It turns out not all mediums all over the world, not even all mediums in the United States, agree about certain things. For example, some people, I don't know why you would get irked about this, but some people are really irked that I get mom's people on my left side and dad's people on my right. You shouldn't do it that way, I've been told. Like, it works for me. And my philosophy on this, by the way, is if it works for you, do it, regardless of what someone else says. So there's a lot of things that it turns out we don't all agree on, and that's what the next video will be about. So tune in for that. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below, and I will try to do a video to address those. Thanks.